So like what are the key things that we need to hit in order to convince every prospect of like our solution being the right solution? That's kind of where I was going with that.
The well, clearly the relationship
So
driven side of their business and
how have you
how
grown up
long
till
it's taken.
now? How long it's
Got
taken?
it. So it's the timeline, right?
Mhm.
So and peeling back the layer of the onion
Mhm.
more than just one layer. And what I mean by that is, so let's say we have a B2B consulting firm that has a channel partner
Yeah.
that typically will send them, basically warm leads, right? So whether
Right.
it's a Microsoft or a big platform, right, that will send them warm leads. Like, okay, that's great. Where did that relationship start? How, let's go back another layer from that. How did you meet that person, right,
Mhm.
at Microsoft? Oh, well, let's see. Okay, actually, I was introduced to him or her by Bob over at
Right.
such and such. When was that? Well, that was back probably 5 years ago at my previous company, or at a trade conference or whatever, like peeling back the layers back, like, hey, bear with me on this, let's go back in time to understand, right? Because that didn't just drop out of nowhere, right? So like,
Yep.
let's just trace it back, and that may just be one example, but let's look at some other ones too, right? And here's another one. Here's
Yep.
to a client one. Hey, where did that deal come from? Oh, that was referred to me by a client that we did work for. Oh, okay. When did you do work for that client? That was probably 3 years ago, maybe, where, right, right, like, but tracing it back. Okay, then where did that client that you did work for 3 years ago, where did that come from? Oh, that originated one from a network lead I had from a guy I went to business school with. That was back 5 years prior. Okay, right?
I
Like,
love it. Yep. So we got to hit on that, and then we got to hit on when the network taps dries up or the founder wants to grow faster, they then turn to traditional sales and marketing tactics, which do not work because it fights everything that works in this industry. It fights the relationship building process, and it gives you, and like when the marketing agencies come and talk to you, they give you unrealistic expectations for what you should be expecting out of a sales and marketing process for a consulting firm. Like it is completely mismatched expectations because they are used to transactional industries where they're just trying to pump leads into your business that have high intent, are ready to buy. It doesn't matter the relationship. They're just trying to pump as many of those in. So then when they try that for a relationship based industry like consulting, it never works. And that is why every single founder that we've ever talked to has never had success with a marketing agency or never had success with a traditional marketing method. There's a
the way
complete mismatch in the expectation.
the way that they should approach it, they being a business, B2B,
Mm-hmm.
consulting firm owner, founder, or a professional services owner, founder, the way that they should approach it is to look at the tools and technology that are available to them to leverage what they did previously to get to that point, and
Yep.
going back 3 layers of the onion to understand that that relationship that they got the deal from didn't originate there. It originated how far back and how many people back. The old Kevin Bacon 7 degrees of, of connectivity, right? And understanding the nature of that, but saying that's okay. What we can do is maybe shorten the timeline that it would have taken, but not from a to build the relationship, but to leverage the tools that will allow you to scale your ability to build more relationships. Because
Yes.
if you look at that one relationship that you built going to a conference 7 years ago where you met Bob, who introduced you to Jane, who is at Microsoft Channel Partnerships or whatever that refers leads to you could look at that and say, well, that conference, right, that one relationship was worth it. Well, how much time and money did it take you? Well, I was there for basically 4 days, the travel and whatever, right? And then they go, great, we're going to help you leverage technology and platforms and a methodology and process that works that allows you to scale, right, much better than dedicating the 4 days to that relationship, which you would still go back and probably do. But we're going to tell you a process, a methodology, and the platforms, a process to use to be able to multiply that 10x with 10 times less the time involved.
100%. So they like we can't shortcut, we can't completely change the relationship based nature of your industry to make traditional sales and marketing work. We can't fit that square peg into the round hole. But what we can do is give you a more efficient and shortcutted way to build more relationships at scale and build the trust and authority and value in those relationships quicker over time, so that when they have the need for you, you are top of mind because people buy from people and you are the primary relationship there. Like, we cannot change the nature of the industry, but we can give you tools to leverage what already works and do it at scale.
So
And
let's
the
talk through. Let's
best predict I want to say this so that Claude picks it up. And the best predictor of future success is past actions that have led to, I don't know, we
your
figure out how to
success
phrase
this
it.
far.
Yeah,
So your
exactly.
previous success, right? History is the best teacher, right?
Mm-hmm.
History
100%.
repeats itself. The analogy of using the rearview mirror and looking at all of that as far back as you can see will help you determine how far forward you can go, right?
And so if
And
every single one of your current clients or business relationships, or if every single one of your current clients has come from your extended network of business relationships where you worked with Tom and Tom worked with Jill and you guys all work together here, like if all your current clients have come from that network and the relationships, is it really surprising to you at all that when you go send mass cold emails at scale to these people that it doesn't lead to business? Or you try and force them into your ads funnel, it doesn't lead to business? Like, is that really surprising to you? If you have not successfully done that a single time in the past, why do you think that's going to work for you in the future?
so in terms of like even the components to use for success, if we said you do this, you will be successful, right? Because one of the things is nurturing a relationship, and like we all have thousands of relationships in our lifetime, right? But like being top of mind, right? So if you're consistent, so if you said, all right, I have a place where all of your ICP is located, like they are there, they're having conversations, they're networking, etc., right? It's LinkedIn without a doubt, right? At least for our ICP and for our clients ICP, B2B consulting firms, professional services firms, everyone is on LinkedIn. Anyone that is a valid prospect is on LinkedIn. So if we say, great, that's where we go, right? And we go with two things. One, which is you need to start putting out content and demonstrate your subject matter expertise on that platform. Just put it out there. Things you've done, things you're doing, right? Because that's where your ICP is. So that's where we got to start is by putting content, putting thought leadership, putting your subject matter expertise out in the market, whether that's recorded content like this, whether that's written content that you're writing, whether that is LinkedIn live events, whatever it may be, right? That's going to do two things. It builds trust on a 10x basis. It keeps you top of mind with your existing network. So you're basically that same network you built over the past 5, 10, 20 years, right? Is seeing the thought leadership that you put out there every day, right? And it's reminding them, keeping them top of mind. So you know that by doing that, you're doing a few different things. You're helping build your trust and authority with people who don't know you as well, your ICP, and you're also keeping top of mind with your network, your channel partners, your referral partners, your prospects that come into your pipeline, right? And then on top of that, now when you say, great, now I've built that foundation, there are three ways to get clients, right? Content, right? Which is that. So people start to see your content, see your thought leadership. People in your networks like, hey, Bob, you've been doing that. Someone else just asked me the other day who can help them migrate from on-prem to off-prem in the cloud, right? Or whatever it may be, right? And the other is that folks who are just getting to know you are like, this person knows their stuff. I'm going to reach out to them organically, right? Based off their content. The second is through cold outreach. Well, cold outreach only works when you have established yourself as a thought leader on the marketplace. You've demonstrated your niche expertise. And combined with the fact you need to have a value forward offer to go to a cold market to get someone to respond to you, just so that you can meet them and have an initial conversation, not to sell them a darn thing, but just so that you can start a relationship. So those are really the components that, when you just looked at those two alone, will work for everybody that has built their business successfully in B2B consulting and professional service firms up to today.
100%. You know, another analogy that I think is a really good one. You know, I was thinking through it, and like, I think for the most part, people have like, when it comes to like needing a plumber, electricians, or, you know, landscaper, or those types of things, I feel like a lot of people have like guys for that. Like, I'm thinking myself specifically, like, I had like an electrical thing that needed to get fixed at my house. And I knew exactly who to call because there was this guy that I'd met at the gym like a year ago. And like we'd hit it off. Like I'd see him at the gym all the time. We'd talk. Like I found out he was an electrician. Like, and when I had an issue, I was like, oh, like John. Like I talk to John all the time. I like John. John's a good guy. And so John came over, fixed it, gave me a really good price, like pretty much did it for free. And now I will use John whenever. But that's the perfect example, I think, of being relevant and being top of mind when the prospect has an issue. Because like I get things in the mail all the time for plumbers, for electricians, for tire and all that, and I don't care because I know, like, either through people that I've met, like I know somebody to take my tire, like my car to for tires. I know an electrician, like my parents knew people too. And so now I know them through them. So like all that like push marketing that's coming to me to for all that, it doesn't matter to me because I have relationships with people. And while that might not lead to business for them in the moment when they're building the relationship with me, it leads to business in the long run because as soon as I have an electrical issue, I go to John. As soon as I need my tires changed, I go to some other guy. Like it is the perfect example of you do business with people you know and you like. And so they're not trying to force their services or anything like that on me, but it's like they've built a relationship with me. So when I do need those services, there's nobody else I'm going to use because I have loyalty to them. I like them. Like, and that is exactly how you need to approach your consulting services, where it's like you don't need to go find people who have high intent for your services at the current time. You need to go find people who are in your ideal client profile with the understanding that if you build the right relationship with them and provide value to them and be a good human, like build a good relationship, that when they do have a need for you, they're not going to just go search something online or respond to the first cold email that they see. They're going to be like, oh, Terrence. Terrence and I did that podcast together. Terrence, you know, texts me every once in a while. Like Terrence and I went and got a beer when he was in when I was in Idaho. Like, of course I'm going to go to Terrence. Like that is how you have to approach growing your firm. You cannot take shortcuts.
This just happened the other day with a prospect who we had first talked to, oh man, like a year and a half ago. He's since moved to another company, has more budget, reached out to me on LinkedIn because he's been seeing my content that resonates with what he wants to do, and did like kind of a gut check call with me. Like, hey, am I on the right track? And I'm like, yeah, you are. You are absolutely on the right track. The position you're trying to hire, I don't think you're going to find that person, but you are absolutely on the right track, right? And he's like, okay, great. And I'm like, just keep doing. Like, I'm like, just tell me where we can be of help in this process to you, right? Like, just like hey, he's like, I'm good right now. I just got feet on the ground, like within the last 45 days, and he told me even some of the other agencies work with, and I'm like, that's great. They're doing that's the right thing. Yes, that's the right thing. And I left that as like, hey, like I know I would go have beers with him, and I know I'm a trusted advisor. And he's even told me like, "Hey, we're going to get you involved." It's like, yeah, I don't worry about it. I get it. Like, just let us know where we can be in that help of process. But just the fact that we had established and built a relationship as him coming through our prospecting process, the very same prospecting process that we use today is what he came through. We have a great relationship. The fact that he called me as a seller, right, of marketing services, right, tells you that the relationship is stronger than any buying, selling, transactional process.
I mean, there's a lot of prospects like that, Terrence, that have come through our process over the last year where they'll text me or they'll text you, and
Mhm.
it's as a friend, as a trusted advisor, where it's like they have a question about something sales and marketing related, and so they text me, ask if I can have a hop on a quick call with them. They text you, you guys, hop on a call. It's like that's the position you want to be in with your prospects. You want to be in that, peer to peer friend level where like when they know all of those prospects, they know exactly what I do. They know exactly what you do. They know what we do at Grow IT. They know that we're good at what we do. And so when they do have that sales and marketing question, we're the first people that come to mind because they're friends. We have relationships with them.
And I don't think any B2B consulting firm or professional services firm would disagree with what we're saying. They're like, yeah, no doubt, that's how we've grown our business. But the difference is the availability of tools, technology, and processes to scale that same exact methodology. That's, I think, what we're talking about that makes it different, right? Which
Uh-huh.
is, and that same example of that prospect that I just mentioned, he was located in Kansas City, right? Now he's in Denver, in your hometown, right? But like, the point being is that we met him on a Zoom meeting, right? Like, I mean, and the ability to leverage the fact that initial process probably took us, I don't know, hour and a half of our time back in the day, right? Where normally maybe I would have met him at an industry conference or something. I would have spent 3 days. My point being is that there's tools and technology that now allow us to have the ability to create opportunities for those relationships at scale, right? So what normally, if I had to go to a conference to hope that I would pull one or two, three new relationships from that, in that same time period over a 3 day period, I could probably leverage, I don't know, probably at the very least 20 conversations using our value forward outreach method to get into conversations with folks develop those same relationships. So I guess that's what I mean is like the availability of tools and platforms available to just replicate what you did to be successful, allow you to like 10x on a horizontal standpoint, right?
Yeah, I think that's really what is unique about the methodology that we've unlocked at Grow IT for consulting and professional service firms is I think every consulting and professional service founder understands how they've grown their business up to this point is through relationships, but they don't feel like they can keep doing that. Like they don't feel like they can do that at scale. They don't feel like they have the time to do that. It's tapped out. How do you do that with a cold audience? And so that's why they turn to the traditional sales and marketing tactics, which then end up failing them because it fights the actual relationship based nature of the industry. But to your point, Terrence, what we've done at Grow IT is we've figured out, okay, we're not going to try and fight the relationship based nature of this industry using the traditional sales and marketing tools and technology and all that. But what we are going to do is use traditional sales and marketing tools to allow that relationship building process to happen at scale so that we're actually bringing those relationships to your doorstep rather than you having to go spend thousands of dollars to go to a conference and build a couple of those relationships. We've cracked the code at how you can build that authority and trust and build those relationships at scale, sitting in your office, coming to your doorstep every day, and you not having to go out there and actually do it. Like that is what we've done. We make what you've done to grow your business easier and scalable. That we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're just using tools and technology to help you do what you've already done, do more of it and do it better.
I would even let's talk about numbers. Like if you so our ability to leverage the founder's time, right? B2B founder to just put out content, thought leadership, demonstrate their subject matter expertise in a specific niche, right? And let's just call it a couple hours a month, right? Like 2 to 5 hours a month, right? So, uh, and what that gives you is right that the consistent ability to consistently put out that content, thought leadership, subject matter expertise onto LinkedIn in a matter that helps you establish credibility, authority, build trust with prospects that don't know you, keep you top of mind with your existing network, right? So 2 to 5 hours a month for that. And then on top of it, let's just say that I don't have a salesperson, or I don't have someone who has the ability to take these, let's call it introductory calls, right? Or introductory type of meetings with the value forward offer that we go with to a C-level person or someone of significance, not someone who's, Bob's assistant, whether it's, Joe or Betty or whatever, right? But like with true people that you want to have, your ICP that you want to have a high level conversation with, I would say, even if you only had an hour a day, so 5 hours a week. I don't know if that's considered too much for me. I'm like, like for to be at a sales function. So if you had an hour a day, let's narrow that down. Let's say only you had 2 hours a week for the sales part. So you're like, hey, I'm going to block out 2 hours a week, right, for these types of meetings, right? So that's what, 8 hours a month. So with 8 plus, let's call it the 5 hours for the content, thought leadership, etc. That's 14 hours a month. That's like
Not
all
even.
you need. That would
Not
be the
even
magic
close.
recipe, right? Like right there. If you said 15 hours a month that you could dedicate to that, I can guarantee you with this process and methodology, with 15 hours a month.
Honestly, realistically, even less. Like the content side of things, I think you need 2 to 3 hours at most for the content side of things. And then it depends on how fast you want to scale the relationships. And if you can afford to dedicate 2 hours a week to it, 8 a month to that, then great. That's 8 new strategic relationships that you can make a month versus, 5 or 6. But it just comes down to how fast you want to scale it. Like realistically, you can build these 60 relationships over the course of a year, plus do all the content and thought leadership side of things for less than 10 hours a month.
Yeah.
Like that is pretty unbelievable. Like if
Yeah.
you as a founder don't have the 10 hours a month to dedicate to the business growth, then you probably need to reprioritize because
yeah.
I
And
think
think
that's
about
fair.
this. So that's 10 hours a month. That's 120 hours a year, right? Quick math. Or no, wait. 12. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, you nailed it. Yeah.
I questioned myself. I'm like, wait a second. So that's 120 hours. Think
Mhm.
about a conference that you've gone to, right? That may be like a 3 or 4 day conference, right?
Mhm.
Travel time, etc. Like, how much time is that? Well, Grant, you're like, okay, Terrence, 4 days. I can do math, right? Like that's 4 times 24, 180 something, right? But like, there's only X amount of time that's being spent in the function, right? So, let's just say 8 to 10 hours a day because you're talking about the conference and dinners and events and things, right? But if you look at it and said, okay, well, that's, you know, between 35 and, 40 or 50 hours, right, for that time frame, that's almost half of what you'd spend, yeah, a third to half of what you'd spend doing our methodology that will that will scale and allow you to do 10x. I'm just trying to think of the math involved here and going just to prioritize.
Yeah, I mean, I just like to always bring it back to the like if you can dedicate, if you can dedicate that time, that's 60 new relationships with your ICP every year. Like that is just
And I think to your point, if you don't find value in that, then never mind. Right?
then have fun with the traditional sales and marketing Legos.
Yeah.
Like honestly, there's no what else are you gonna do?
Yeah.
I think
Well, that is the question, right?
Yeah.
Like, what else could you do? Like,
I mean, you can try cold email, you can try SEO, you can try ads, you can try hiring salespeople, you can try hiring a marketing lady, you can try all these things. And honestly, like I don't care if you work with us or not, but genuinely, like of the what is it now? It's probably 400. I think it's at least 400 plus consulting professional service firms that we've talked to. It's probably actually, I mean,
it's way more.
way higher
It's
than that.
way more.
Yeah. So of the, let's just say 600 plus consulting and professional service firms we've talked to over the last year, there is not a single one Not a single, I'm not even exaggerating. Like, not a single one that has told us that they have had success with traditional marketing agencies, traditional marketing and sales methods. Like, we're not even exaggerating. Not a single one. Every single one of them is growing with referrals, growing with word of mouth, growing with channel partners. Like, those are the only things that any consulting or professional service firms have gotten to work. And so if you do not buy into this, like, oh, I don't see the value in building 60 new relationships with my ICP and like strategic relationships over the course of the year, fine. But what else are you going to do? What else are you going to do? Go try everything and then come back to me a year later and tell me how it went. Because if you crack it, I want to know how. Because we have talked to 600 plus and not a single one has made it work. So if you think you're that unicorn, then great. But this is the only way. Like, it
It is the
genuinely
only
is
way.
the only
It
way.
is literally the only way. And I think we just need to go out with that, like with so that and that was kind of my thought, by the way, earlier when I was talking about how we got the process correct.
Mm-hmm.
We mispriced it and we didn't frame it correctly.
Yeah.
But we now have the entire process to where we can literally go to the market and be like, this is the only thing that works. I can guarantee you. And if you do it, whether you do it with us, that's kind of what I said to, one of our prospects for. If you do this, go to here. I'm telling you it works. Go to one of our competitors, and I will tell you if you do this and this, it will work for you. If you do it for 12 months, and that's all I can, like, right? Like that's all I can do is to reiterate to you. It is the only thing that works, and it will work without a doubt. I would 100% guarantee it. If you follow this process and this methodology and you do this, it will, it is, there is no way it doesn't work. As long as you have happy clients in the past and you have leveraged, network relationships, et cetera, all those things, if you have those and you've been successful in your business model up to this point, this absolutely will work. And it is, on top of that, the only thing that will work at scale. Should be easy. I mean, I think it's going to be much easier this round
Oh my
to
God.
go because
We
we
should
know
be-
that's the difference.
Yeah.
To where before it was like we were out selling it, they believed in us, and then we were figuring it out. Now we know. Like it's like
We know what works. Like, oh
Yeah.
man. We should be able to sell the hell out of this, and we should be able to sell it at a pretty damn good price point. Like, I was doing I was running I was using the LGBTQ plus calculator earlier, and
Oh my god, it did sound like that, by the way.
I was like looking through I was trying to like figure out what price point. I mean, we need to let the market tell us the price point, but
Price point for what? I can't see it, by the way, because it's too far away.
yeah, no
It's
worries.
okay. Don't worry about it. Just
But so like I was just running through some of these numbers, and so like worst case, like let's just say $350 per qualified call,
I
20% close rate, our average monthly revenue per customer. Let's put this at the 3,500. Gross profit for us is gonna, let's just estimate 85% per customer. And churn, let's just put at like 15%. Okay. So that makes our LTGP per customer about 20K if it's at 3,500 a month. And with a 350 cost per call and a 20% close rate, that puts us at the 11 LTGP to CAC ratio, which is in the like good range, upper tier of the good range. So that's really good. But if we were to say, okay, we're going to qualify a lot harder in the ads funnel, like this is something Fazio runs through. He's like, what if you
Mhm.
only want to talk to people making even more money? He's like, raise your cost per qualified call because you're going to be qualifying harder. So let's say we raise our cost per qualified call up to 500. Fazio says when you do that, raise the close rate up to about 30 to 35%. So I'm going to raise the close rate to 30%. And then, why is this weird? Okay. And then he says when you raise the cost per qualified call and you raise the close rate, raise the average revenue per customer because you're bringing in people with more money, better people. So I'm going to raise this like up to 5,000 a month as the price point. And then he says churn always goes down when you pull that lever. So I'm going to lower the churn to like 10. So like if our average revenue per customer is 5,000 a month, and we're paying $500 per qualified call, which is really high, our LTGP to CAC ratio is 25.5. So like there's just a lot of levers that we can pull here, but it almost makes me wonder like that's kind of why when I was asking about the discovery calls, I was like, I wanted to listen to discovery calls with like Chris and Adam and the people that could afford 7,500 a month, 8,000 a month, because that's like if we can charge them, if we can get the upsell, that makes everything better.
So here's the thing. So let's use CloudRev, right? So if we had gotten them earlier in the process or had a long, I have a call with him by the way tomorrow.
Oh yeah, yeah.
If we had gotten them earlier in the process and established the trust and authority, because they're like, okay, we get it. Sort of like what happened with Rhino. Like it didn't happen overnight, it happened. If we went to Rhino now and said, hey, I think you guys need, if you want to ramp this up, I think you need to do this. Hire a salesperson or hire someone for Christy and whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they would be like, okay, like let's do it. Let's budget for it, right?
Yeah.
And I think if we were to go back to like CloudRev and be like, hey, instead of the 150K sales guy that you paid, like they had a bunch of different sales and marketing Legos. Instead of the 150, if we're like, hey, this worked, let's start with here. Let's set the foundational framework with the content, thought leadership, etc. We're going to do the outreach. Adam, you're going to do these calls for now. And then the next step would be like, hey, cool, like let's hire an SDR. That way you can get more intro calls. You can tell them the type of person you want to do. They can set you up with the podcast with that person, right? It just becomes
Mm-hmm.
I think it's easier to do that upsell, right?
Yeah.
So you look and say, would someone, would a $8,000 or $8 million firm pay 10 grand a month? They would if we had if they had the budget for the $150,000 sales guy. They had enough for us at whatever 7 or 8K a month, right? So it was like that was 250, let alone other stuff that they were doing. But if we demonstrated something that worked, and like, hey, cool, now let's hire a 60K SDR that leverages time. My point being is, I think the upsells are there. I think the path is there.
Yeah, and I think it's what Daniel said. He's like, you have to have the low entry point offer. So like the 3,300 a month, you get them in there, and then you put the 7,000 a month, 8,000 a month offer in front of everybody, and 20% of them will take it, and that's all we need. Like if we have.
Getting a lot of submissions.
So with Fazio's math, like if we charge 3,300 for 3,300 for the entry, and then 20% accept our higher offer, which I just put in at 6,500, then that raises our average monthly revenue per client to like a little bit above 4,000, which helps a lot with all the like the LTGP and all that ratios. I mean, I just think that's what we do. We blow them away with how different our methodology is. Blow them away with how different our methodology is. We really need to have like good VSL breaking down everything you and I just talked about, and then we get them into the entry point offer, and then we upsell the ones that can afford it.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be. I don't think I'm worried less about the upsell. And the other thing is too is like once Rhino closes their first deal from this shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then it's a case study, right?
Yeah.
Then it's truly a case study. It's an end-to-end case study. Like, and hey, if you don't want to put in 10 to, well, I mean, that goes on 10 months now, 12 to 18 months in this, then you're not serious about growing your firm. You can just keep looking for marketing later. That's what I think about like Chris Raporo. He's fucking numbnuts, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
but even the other, I think, because I wrote Fred an email, just a quick one, because we're going to talk. But like, this is where I don't like the growth partner model. We used up our trust with the budget of what he's already spent with us, and saying, like, I don't see, he's not seen any progress, right? Where I would argue with like Cloud Rev, it's like, dude, we showed you we could get you into the right conversation, right? Like, granted, you may not be happy you spent, 70K with us, but like, we gave you a lot more than the 150K you spent with the sales guy. So
yeah, I wish we could go back and like reframe things with CloudRev because we could get them really.
That's what I'm going to try and do in my conversation tomorrow with him, is to say,
do we want to man, I don't
it depends. I want to see where things are at with him and Chad. But the other thing I would say is that, hey man, like, what is what doesn't work. Chad's transactional, you're a relationship driven guy. If you have X amount of time per month, we can show you that this will work for you long term. It will be the one thing that works for you. And it will. And it would work for Adam.
Like, I'm just picturing with Adam, like putting him into 5 podcasts a month with their ICP,
Mm-hmm.
and 3 podcasts a month with Microsoft account executives. Let Adam build relationships with those 8 people a month and see what happens.
That's probably how I think we would frame it for him.
Yeah,
like, do you think
I think so.
Do you think that would work for it? Because it definitely, like, again, like, okay, here's the thing. I do that with him and with CloudRev before I would do it with Fred, because Fred's like, it's like Fred doesn't have any of the pieces. Like, Fred, it's like, hey, you're the guy, Fred. Like, you would be the guy that we would leverage for that part. You're not going to you don't have the time to take any sales calls, let alone barely to probably do 2 podcasts a month. And there's no other pieces there. Like, Carl can't do it. So it's like, at least with CloudRiver, like, you see the pieces where we could be successful with. Something like Driven Forward, it's like, that's kind of what I'm going to kind of break down for Fred. Like, until you have other people, other pieces, you don't have the time or capacity or the resources to put into this.
I think
Does our system work? It does. It's working for other consulting firms, but it's not going to work for you right now because of this, this, and this.
I think these are key things, Terrence, that we have to give Ollie, because so I was going through Fazio's stuff this morning. I sent this to Ollie, but like, one of the things Fazio says is, like, with ads calls and any sales calls, you must first qualify them, and only after you know they are qualified do you go into discovery and try to prescribe them a solution.
I literally said this to Treg this morning. So
Stop
I met with him
qualifying yourself. You only need to qualify yourself if the person is qualified and they do have an issue you can solve.
That's what I said to Treg. I was like, dude, you need to be asking them what they're, because he's like, what do we have to support like the metrics and the data? I was like, you need to ask them, they know their data. Like, what's their show rate on meetings?
Yeah.
And I'm like, and they're not going to do any of that because they're probably not doing that. And I was like, at the end of the day, you need to ask them, what is their client lifetime value? They won't know that either. but at least you'll be able to walk them through that exercise to be able to tell them whether or not we're a fit for them. If they're less than 50, if they're in 30 to 50, maybe. If they're above 50, then absolutely we can. But you've
Yeah,
got
I mean,
to,
like Ollie needs to find out from every prospect and Treg, what is their LTV?
that's
Do
what
they
I told
have
them. That's what
happy?
the intro calls are going to be now. That's what I said. That's what you need to get from them. Like,
Because then you completely reframe it. You're like, look, we only take on 5 every month so we're really trying to find like the best 5 for us. So I have like a couple quick like qualifying questions, like if you think it'd be the right fit for you. And it's like LTV, how many hours a month can the founder commit to it, and or founder or somebody that they trust to build the
and what's your
relationships.
timeline? What's your timeline from a time money standpoint? Do you have more time than money? Do you have more money than time? Like, what is it that you're right?
Yeah.
I totally agree. That, and if I can get them to do those, yeah, but I agree. That's why I want to go back into doing these calls again too. But I want to do them with channel partners where it can be far more effective. I think we're going to find traction with high level kind of marketing agency type. Ollie found one. He actually sent me a couple more. He met with one that's like a software platform for LinkedIn outreach. It looks pretty good. But that's where I want to try and leverage my time on the channel partnerships, which we've talked about doing, but it's like we've been wanting to get the sales process done first. So fuck. All right, I'm gonna go eat.
Sounds good. Yeah, me too.
I'm trying to pull like an ollie here. I'm gonna die. All right, you get both of these. Do you want me to send both of these to you?